The Cricket in Times Square by George Selden. Drawings by Garth Williams. Chapter 1. Tucker. A mouse was looking at Mario. The mouse's name was Tucker, and he was sitting in the opening of an abandoned drain pipe in the subway station at Times Square. The drain pipe was his home. Back a few feet in the wall, it opened out into a pocket that Tucker had filled with the bits of paper and shreds of cloth he collected. And when he wasn't collecting, scrounging as he called it, or sleeping, he liked to sit at the opening of the drain pipe and watch the world go by. At least as much of the world as hurried through the Times Square subway station. Tucker finished the last few crumbs of a cookie he was eating. A Lorna Doone shortbread bread he had found earlier in the evening, and licked off his whiskers. Such a pity, he sighed. Every Saturday night, now for almost a year, he had watched Mario tending his father's newsstand. On weekdays, of course, the boy had to get to bed early, but over the weekends, Papa Bellini let him take his part in helping out with the family business. Far into the night, Mario waited. Papa hoped that by staying open as late as possible, his newsstand might get some of the business that would otherwise have gone to the larger stands. But there wasn't much business tonight. The poor kid might as well go home, murmured Tucker Mouse to himself. What's the name of the mouse?
Talk.
Very good. He looked around the station. The bustle of the day had long since subsided, and even the nighttime crowds, returning from the theaters and movies, had vanished. Now and then a person or two would come down one of the many stairs that led from the street and dart through the station. But at this hour everyone was in a hurry to go to bed. On the lower level the trains were running much less often. There would be a long stretch of silence. Then the mountain roar as a string of cars approached Times Square. Then a pause, while it let off old passengers and took on new ones. And finally the rush of sound as it disappeared up the dark tunnel. And the hush fell again. There was an emptiness in the air. The whole station seemed to be waiting for the crowds of people it needed. Tucker Mouse looked back at Mario. He was sitting on a three-legged stool behind the counter of the newsstand. In front of him, all the magazines and newspapers were displayed as neatly as he knew how to make them. Papa Bellini had made the newsstand himself many years ago. The space inside was big enough for Mario, but Mama and Papa were cramped when they each took their turn. A shelf ran along one side, and on it were a little second-hand radio, a box of Kleenex for Mama's hay fever, a box of kitchen matches for lighting Papa's pipe, a cash register for money, which there wasn't much of, and an alarm clock for no good reason at all. The cash register had one drawer, which was always open. It had gotten stuck once, with all the money the Bellinis had in the world inside it. So Papa decided it would be safer never to shut it again. When the stand was closed for the night, the money that was left there to start off the new day was perfectly safe, because Papa had also made a big wooden cover with a lock that fitted over the whole thing. Mario had been listening to the radio. He switched it off. Way down the tracks he could see the lights of the shuttle train coming toward him. On the level of the station where the newsstand was, the only tracks were the ones on which the shuttle ran. That was a short train that went back and forth from the Times Square to Grand Central, taking people from the subways on the west side of New York City over to the lines on the east. Mario knew most of the conductors on the shuttle. They all liked him and came over to talk between trips. The train screeched to a stop beside the newsstand, blowing a gust of hot air in front of it. Only 9 or 10 people got out. Tucker watched anxiously to see if any of them stopped to buy a paper. All late papers, shouted Mario as they hurried by. Magazines! The cricket in Times Square. No one stopped. Hardly anyone even looked at him. Mario sank back on his stool. All evening long he had sold only 15 papers and 4 magazines. In the drain pipe, Tucker Mouse, who had been keeping count too, sighed and scratched his ear. Mario's friend Paul, a conductor in the shuttle, came over to the stand. Any luck? He asked. No, said Mario. Maybe on the next train. There's going to be less and less until morning, said Paul. Mario rested his chin on the palm of his hand. I can't understand it, he said. It's Saturday night too. Even the Sunday papers aren't going. Paul leaned up against the newsstand. You're up awfully late tonight, he said. Well, I can sleep on Sundays, said Mario. Besides, school's out now. Mama and Papa are picking me up on the way home. They went to visit some friends. Saturday's the only chance they have. Over a loudspeaker came a voice saying, Next train for Grand Central, track 2. Night, Mario, Paul said. He started off toward the shuttle. Then he stopped, reached in his pocket, and flipped a $50 over the counter. Mario caught the big coin. I'll take a Sunday Times, Paul said, and pick up the newspaper. Hey, wait, Mario called after him. It's only 25 cents. You've got a quarter coming. But Paul was already in the car. The door slid closed. There's Mario. And Tucker the mouse is watching him as he sells the newspaper and magazine.
Yeah, I'm watching you, him, and I'm watching that little spider. I'm keeping an eye.
He smiled and waved through the window. With a lurch, the train moved off, its lights glimmering away through the darkness. Tucker Mouse smiled too. He liked Paul. In fact, he liked anybody who was nice to Mario. But it was late now, time to crawl back to his comfortable niche and the wall and go to sleep. Even a mouse who lives in the subway station in Times Square has to sleep sometimes. And Tucker had a big day planned for tomorrow, collecting things for his home and snapping up bits of food that fell from the lunch counters all over the station. He was just about to turn into the drain pipe when he heard a very strange sound. Now Tucker Mouse had heard almost all the sounds that can be heard in New York City. He had heard the rumble of subway trains and the shriek their iron wheels make them when they go around the corner. From above, through the iron grills that open onto the streets, he had heard the thrumming of the rubber tires of automobiles and the hooting of their horns and the hauling of their brakes. And he had heard the babble of voices when the station was full of human beings, and the barking of the dogs that some of them had on leashes, birds, the pigeons of New York, and cats, and even the high purring of airplanes above the city. Tucker had heard. But in all his days and on all his journeys through the greatest city in the world, Tucker had never heard a sound quite like this one. Chapter 2, Mario. Mario heard the sound too. I wonder what sound it is. He stood up and listened intently. The noise of the shuttle rattled off into silence. From the streets above came the quiet murmur of the late traffic. There was a noise of rustling nothingness in the station. Still Mario listened, straining to catch the mysterious sound. And there it came again. I wonder what sound it was. It was like a quick stroke across the strings of a violin, or like a harp that has been plucked suddenly. If a leaf in a green forest far from New York had fallen at midnight through the darkness into a thicket, it might have sounded like that. Mario thought he knew what it was. The summer before, he had gone to visit a friend who lived in Long Island. One afternoon, as the loose sun reached long yellow fingers through the tall grass, he had stopped beside a meadow to listen to just such a noise. But there had been many of them then. A chorus! Now there was only one. Faintly it came again through the subway station. Mario slipped out of the newsstand and stood waiting. The next time he heard the sound, he went toward it. It seemed to come from one corner, next to the stairs that led up to a 42nd Street. Softly, Mario went toward the spot. For several minutes, there was only the whispering silence. Whatever it was that was making the sound had heard him coming and was quiet. Silently, Mario waited. Then he heard it again, rising from a pile of waste papers and soot that had blown against the concrete wall. Oh, it was the mouse squeak that he heard. He went down and very gently began to lift off the papers. One by one, he inspected them and laid them to one side. Down near the bottom, the papers became dirtier and dirtier. Mario reached the floor. He began to feel with his hands through the dust and soot, and reaching a crack under all the refuse, he found what he'd been looking for. It was a little insect, about an inch long and covered with dirt. It had 6 legs, 2 long antennae on its head, and what seemed to be a pair of wings folded on its back. What is that, a bat? Holding his discovery as carefully as his fingers could, Mario lifted the insect up and rested him in the palm of his hand. Oh, it's a cricket! The cricket made a loud noise, he exclaimed. Keeping his cup hand very steady, Mario walked back to the newsstand. The cricket didn't move, and he didn't make that little musical noise anymore. He just lay perfectly still as if he were sleeping or frightened to death. Mario pulled out a Kleenex and laid the cricket on.
Mom, I still see that spy.
It's alright, I'll take it later. Then he took another and started to dust him off. Ever so softly, he tapped the hard black shell and the antenna and the legs and wings. Gradually, the dirt that had collected on the insect fell away. His true colors was still black, but now he had a bright, glossy sheen. When Mario had cleaned off the cricket as much as he could, he hunted around the floor of the station for a matchbox. In a minute, he'd found one and knocked out one end. Then he folded a sheet of Kleenex, tucked it in the box, and put the cricket in. It made a perfect bed. The cricket seemed to like his new home. He moved around a few times and settled himself comfortably. Mario sat for a time, just looking. He was so happy and excited that when anyone walked through the station, he forgot to shout, "Newspapers and magazines." Then a thought occurred to him. Perhaps the cricket was hungry. He rummaged through his jacket pocket and found a piece of chocolate bar that had been left over from supper. Mario broke off one corner and held it out to the cricket on the end of his finger. Cautiously, the insect lifted his head to the chocolate. He seemed to smell it a moment, then took a bit. A shiver of pleasure went over Mario as the cricket ate from his hand. Mama and Papa Bellini came up the stairs from the lower level of the station. Mama was a short woman, a little stouter than she liked to admit, who wheezed and got a red face when she had to climb steps. Papa was tall and somewhat bent over, but he had a kindness that shone about him. There seemed always to be something smiling inside Papa. Mario was so busy feeding his cricket that he didn't see them when they came up to the newsstand. "So?" said Mama, craning over the counter. "What now?" "I found a cricket," Mario exclaimed. He picked up the insect up very gently between his thumb and forefinger and held him out for his parents to see. Mama studied the little black creature carefully. "It's a bug," she pronounced finally. "Throw it away." Mario's happiness fell in ruins. "No, Mama," he said anxiously. "It's a special kind of bug. Crickets are good luck." "Good luck, eh?" Mama's voice had a way of sounding very dry when she didn't believe something. "Cricketers are good luck, so I suppose ants are better luck, and cockroaches are the best luck of all. Throw it away." "Please, Mama, I want to keep him for a pet." "No bugs are coming to my house," said Mama. "We've got enough already with the screens full of holes." He'll whistle to his friends. They'll come from all over. We'll have a house full of cricketers. No, we won't, said Mario in a low voice. I'll fix the screens. But he knew it was no use arguing with Mama. When she had made up her mind, you might as well try to reason with the 8th Avenue subway. How was sailing tonight? Asked Papa. He was a peaceful man and always tried to head off arguments. Oh, look like his mom. Changing the subject was something he did very well. 15 papers and 4 magazines, said Mario, and Paul just bought a Sunday Times. No one took a musical America or anything else nice. Papa was very proud that his newsstand carried all of what he could, the quality magazines. No, answered Mario. So you spend less time playing with cricketers. You'll sell more papers, said Mama. Oh, now, Papa saw there. Mario can't help it if nobody buys. You can tell the temperature with crickets too, said Mario. You count the number of chirps in a minute, divide by 4 and add 40. Do you hear that?
Yeah.
You count the number of chirps in a minute, divide by 4 and add 40. They're very intelligent. Who needs a cricketer thermometer? Said Mama. It's coming on summer. It's New York. It's hot. And how do you know so much about cricketers? Are you one? Jemmy Lebowski told me last summer, said Mario. Then give it to the expert Jemmy Lebowski, said Mama. Bugs carry germs. He doesn't come in the house. Mario looked down at his new friend in the palm of his hand. Just for once he had been really happy. The cricket seemed to know that something was wrong. He jumped onto the shelf and crept into the matchbox. He could keep it here in the newsstand, suggested Papa. Mario jumped at the idea. Yes, and then he wouldn't have to come home. I could feed him here and leave him here and you'd never have to see him, he said to Mama. And when you took the stand, I'd bring him with me. Mama paused. Cricketer, she said scornfully. What do we want with a cricketer? What do we want with a newsstand? Said Papa. We got it. Let's keep it. There was something resigned but nice about Papa. You said I could have a dog, said Mario. But I never got him. And I never got a cat, or a bird, or anything. I wanted this cricket for my pet. He's yours then, said Papa. And when Papa spoke in a certain quiet tone, that was all there was to it. Even Mama didn't dare disagree. She took a deep breath. Oh well, she sighed. And Mario knew it would be all right. Mama saying oh well was her way of giving in. But only in trial he stays. At the first sign of the cricketer friends, or if we come down with peculiar diseases, out he goes. Yes, Mama, anything you say, said Mario. Come on, Mario, Papa said. Help me close up. Mario held the matchbox up to his eye. He was sure the cricket looked much happier now that he could stay. Good night, he said. I'll be back in the morning. Talking to you yet? Said Mama. I've got a cricketer for a son. Papa took one side of the cover to the newsstand, Mario the other, and together they fitted it on.
Can I put the air conditioner on? It's hot.
Papa locked it. As they were going downstairs to the trains, Mario looked back over his shoulders. He could almost feel the cricket snug away in his matchbox bed in the darkness. Chapter 3. Chester. Tucker Mouse had been watching the Delaney's and listening to what they said. Next to scrounging, eavesdropping on human beings was what he enjoyed most. That was one of the reasons he lived in the Times Square subway station. As soon as the family disappeared, he darted out across the floor and scooted up to the newsstand. At one side, the boards had separated and there was a wide space he could jump through. He'd been a few times before, just exploring. For a moment, he stood under the three-legged stool, letting his eyes get used to the darkness. Then he jumped up on it. Psst, he whispered. Hey, you up there, are you awake? There was no answer. Psst, psst, hey! Tucker whispered again, louder this time. From the shelf above came a scuffling, like little feet feeling their way to the edge. "Who is that going psst?" said a voice. "It's me," said Tucker. "Down here on the stool." Oh, now the cricket and the mouse are talking. A black head with two shiny black eyes peered down at him. "Who are you?" "A mouse," said Tucker. "Who are you?" "I'm Chester Cricket," said the cricket. He had a high musical voice. Everything he said seemed to be spoken to an unheard melody. "My name's Tucker," said Tucker Mouse. "Can I come up?" "I guess so," said Chester Cricket. "This isn't my house anyway." Tucker jumped up beside the cricket and looked him all over. "A cricket," he said admiringly. "So you're a cricket. I never saw one before." "I've seen mice before," the cricket said. "I knew quite a few back in Connecticut." "Is that where you're from?" asked Tucker. "Yes," said Chester. "I guess I'll never see it again," he added wistfully. "How did you get to New York?" asked Tucker Mouse. "It's a long story," sighed the cricket. "Tell me," said Tucker. Settling back on his haunches, he loved to hear stories. It was almost as much fun as eavesdropping. If the story was true, well, it must have been 3 days ago, Chester Cricket began. "I was sitting on top of my stump, just enjoying the weather and thinking how nice it was that summer had started. I live inside an old tree stump next to a willow tree, and I often go up to the roof to look around. And I've been practicing jumping that day too. On the other side of the stump, from the willow tree, there's a brook that runs past, and I'd been jumping back and forth across it to get my legs in condition for the summer. I do a lot of jumping, you know." "Me too," said Tucker Mouse, "especially around the rush hour." "And I had just finished jumping when I smelled something," Chester went on. "Liverwurst, which I love." "You like liverwurst?" Tucker broke in. Wait, just wait." In one leap, he sprang down all the way from the shelf to the floor and dashed over to his drain pipe. Chester shook his head as he watched him go. He thought Tucker was a very excitable person, even for a mouse. Inside the drain pipe, Tucker's nest was a jumble of papers, scraps of cloth, buttons, lost jewelry, small change, and everything else that can be picked up in a subway station. Tucker tossed things left and right in a wild search. Neatness was not one of the things he aimed in life. At last he discovered what he was looking for, a big piece of liverwurst he had found earlier that evening. It was meant to be for breakfast tomorrow, but he decided that meeting his first cricket was a special occasion. Holding the liverwurst between his teeth, he whisked back to the newsstand. "Oh, he's sharing the liverwurst that the cricket loves to eat." "Look," he said proudly, dropping the meat in front of Chester Cricket. "Liverwurst." "You continue the story. Well, enjoy your snack too." "That's very nice of you," said Chester. He was touched that a mouse he had known only a few minutes would share his food with him. "I had a little chocolate before, but besides that, nothing for 3 days." Eat, said Tucker. He bit the liverwurst into 2 pieces and gave Chester the bigger one. "So you smelled the liverwurst? Then what happened?" "I hopped down from the stump and went off toward the smell," said Chester. "Very logical," said Tucker Mouse, munching with his cheeks full. "Exactly what I would have done." "It was coming from a picnic basket," said Chester. "A couple of taffets away from the stump the meadow begins, and there was a whole bunch of people having a picnic. They had hard-boiled eggs and cold roast chicken and roast beef and a whole lot of other things beside the liverwurst sandwiches which I smelled." Tucker Mouse moaned with pleasure at the thought of all that food. They were having such a good time laughing and singing songs that they didn't notice me when I jumped into the picnic basket. Continued Chester. "I was sure they wouldn't mind if I had just a taste." "Naturally not," said Tucker Mouse sympathetically. "Why mind? Plenty for all." Who could blame you? Now I have to admit, Chester went on, I had more than a taste. As a matter of fact, I ate so much that I couldn't keep my eyes open. What with being tired from the jumping and everything, and I fell asleep right there in the picnic basket. The first thing I knew, somebody had put a bag on top of me that had the last of the roast beef sandwiches in it. I couldn't move. Imagine, Tucker exclaimed. Trapped under roast beef sandwiches? Well, there are worse fates. At first, I wasn't too frightened, said Chester. After all, I thought they probably come from New Canaan or some other nearby town. They'll have to unpack the basket sooner or later. Little did I know, he shook his head and sighed. I could feel the basket being carried into a car and riding somewhere and then being lifted down. That must have been the railroad station. Then I went up again and there was a rattling and roaring sound, the way a train makes. By this time I was pretty scared. I knew every minute was taking me farther away from my stop, but there wasn't anything I could do. I was getting awfully cramped too under those roast beef sandwiches. Didn't you try to eat your way out? Asked Tucker. I didn't have any room, said Chester. But every now and then the train would give a lurch and I managed to free myself a little. We traveled on and then the train stopped. I didn't have any idea where we were, but as soon as the basket was carried off, I could tell from the noise it must be New York. You never were here before? Tucker asked. Goodness no, said Chester. But I've heard about it. There was a shallow I used to know who told about flying over New York every spring and fall on her way to the north and back. But what would I be doing here? He shifted uneasily from one set of legs to another. I'm a country cricket. Don't worry, said Tucker Moss. I'll feed you liverwurst. You'll be all right. Go on with the story. It's almost over, said Chester. The people got off one train and walked a ways and got on another, even noisier than the first. Must have been the subway, said Tucker. I guess so, Chester Cricket said. You can imagine how scared I was. I didn't know where I was going. For all I knew, they could have been heading for Texas. Although I don't guess many people from Texas come all the way to Connecticut for a picnic. It could happen, said Tucker, nodding his head. Anyway, I worked furiously to get loose, and finally I made it. When they got off the second train,
Mom, you know what? The cricket lives in the same town as we do. The cricket lives in Connecticut, and we live in Connecticut.
That's right. And finally, I made it. When they got off the second train, I took a flying leap and landed in a pile of dirt over in the corner of this place where we are. Such an introduction to New York, said Tucker. To land in a pile of dirt in the Times Square subway station. Check, check, check. And here I am, Chester concluded forlornly. I've been laying over there for 3 days not knowing what to do. At last I got so nervous I began to chirp. That was the sound, interrupted Tucker Mouse. I heard it, but I didn't know what it was. Yes, that was me, said Chester. Usually I don't chirp until later on in the summer. But my goodness, I had to do something. The cricket had been sitting next to the edge of the shelf. For some reason, perhaps it was a faint noise, like padded feet tiptoeing across the floor, he happened to look down. A shadowy form that had been crouching silently below in the darkness and made a spring and landed right next to Tucker and Chester. Watch out! Chester shouted. A cat! He dove headfirst into the matchbox. Chapter 4. Oh no, there was the mouse, Tucker, Chester the cricket, and now there's the cat, Harry the cat. Chapter 4. Harry Cat. Chester buried his head in the clinics. He didn't want to see his new friend. Tucker Mouse get killed. Oh, yeah, Tucker Mouse get killed. His Chester Cricket afraid that the cat is going to eat Tucker the mouse. Back in Connecticut.
Why did Tucker got killed.
No, that's what Chester Cricket think that's going to happen. Back in Connecticut, he had sometimes watched the one-sided fights of cats and mice in the meadow, and unless the mice were near holes, the fights always ended in the same way. But this cat had been upon them too quickly. Tucker couldn't have escaped. There wasn't a sound. Chester lifted his head and very cautiously looked behind him. The cat, a huge tiger cat with gray-green eyes and black stripes along his body, was sitting on his hind legs, switching his tail around his forepaws, and directly between those forepaws in the very jaws of his enemy sat Tucker Mouse. He was watching Chester curiously. The cricket began to make a frantic signs that the mouse should look up and see what was looming over him. Very casually, Tucker raised his head. The cat looked straight down on him. "Oh, him?" said Tucker, chucking the cat under the chin with his right front paw. "He's my best friend. Come out from the matchbox." Chester crept out, looking first at one, then the other. Oh, the cat was Tucker's friend. "Chester, meet Harry Cat," said Tucker. "Harry, this is Chester. He's a cricket." "I'm very pleased to make your acquaintance," said Harry Cat in a sulky voice. "Hello," said Chester. He was sort of ashamed because of all the fuss he'd made. "I wasn't scared for myself, but I thought cats and mice were enemies." "In the country maybe," said Tucker, "but in New York we gave up those old habits long ago. Harry is my oldest friend. He lives with me over in the drain pipe. So how was scrounging tonight, Harry?" "Not so good," said Harry. "I was over in the ash cans on the east side, but those rich people don't throw out as much garbage as they should." "Chester, make that noise again for Harry," said Tucker Mouse. Chester lifted the black wings that were carefully folded across his back and with a quick, expert stroke drew the top one over the bottom. A thrum echoed through the station. "Lovely, very lovely," said the cat. "This cricket has talent." "I thought it was singing," said Tucker, "but you do it like playing a violin, with one wing on the other." "Yes," said Chester. "These wings aren't much good for flying, but I prefer music anyhow." He made 3 rapid chirps. Tucker Mouse and Harry Cat.
The cat and Tucker Mouse are together.
And Chester. Tucker Mouse and Harry Cat smiled at each other.
Where's Chester?
It makes me want to purr to her
Where
in the matchbox, inside the matchbox, over here, said Harry. "Some people say a cricket goes chee, chee, chee. But that's not what the cricket sound," explained Chester. "And others say chee, chee, chee. But we crickets don't think it sounds like either one of those. It sounds to me as if we're going creak, creak, creak," said Harry. "Maybe that's why they call him a cricket," said Tucker. They all laughed. Tucker had a squeaky laugh that sounded as if he were hiccuping. Chester was feeling much happier now. The future did not seem nearly as gloomy as he had over in the pile of dirt in the corner. "Are you going to stay a while in New York?" asked Tucker. "I guess I'll have to," said Chester. "I don't know how to get home." "Well, we could always take you to Grand Central Station and pull you on a train going back to Connecticut," said Tucker. "But why don't you give the city a try? Meet new people, see new things. Mario likes you up very much." "Yes, but his mother doesn't," said Chester. "She thinks I carry germs." "Germs," said Tucker scornfully. "She wouldn't know a germ if one gave her a black eye. Pay no attention." "Too bad you couldn't have found more successful friends," said Harry Cat. "I fear for the future of this newsstand." "It's true," echoed Tucker sadly. "They're going broke fast." He jumped up on a pile of magazines and read off the names in the half-light that slanted through the cracks in the wooden cover. "Art News, Musical America. Who would read them but a few long hairs?" "I don't understand the way you talk," said Chester. But in the meadow he had listened to bullfrogs and woodchucks and rabbits, even a few snakes, but he had never heard anyone speak like Tucker Mouse. "What is a long hair?" Tucker scratched his head and thought a moment. "A long hair is an extra refined person," he said. "You take an Afghan hound, that's a long hair." "Do Afghan hounds read Musical America?" asked the cricket. "They would if they could," said Tucker. Chester shook his head. "I'm afraid I won't get along in New York," he said. "Oh, sure you will," squeaked Tucker Mouse. "Harry, suppose we take Chester up and show him Times Square. Would you like that, Chester?" "I guess so," said Chester, although he was really a little leery venturing out into New York City. The three of them jumped down to the floor. The crack in the side of the newsstand was just wide enough for Harry to get through. As they crossed the station floor, Tucker pointed out the local sights of interest, such as the Niddick lunch counter. Tucker spent a lot of time around there, and the Love's Candy store. Then they came to the drain pipe. Chester had to make short little hops to keep from hitting his head as they went up there. There seemed to be hundreds of twistings and turnings, and many other pipes that opened off the main road. But Tucker Mouse knew his way perfectly even in the dark. At last Chester saw light above them. One more hop brought him out onto the sidewalk, and there he gasped, holding his breath and crouching against the cement. They were standing at one corner of the Times building, which is the south end of Times Square. Above the cricket, towers that seemed like mountains of light rose up into the night sky. Even this late, the neon signs were still blazing. Reds, blues, greens, and yellow flashed down on him, and the air was full of the roar of traffic and the hum of human beings. It was as if Times Square were a kind of shelf, with colors and noises breaking in great waves inside it. Chester's heart hurt him, and he closed his eyes. The sight was too terrible and beautiful for a cricket who up to now had measured high things by the height of his willow tree and sounds by the warble of a running brook. "How do you like it?" asked Tucker Mouse. "Well, it's quite something," Chester stuttered. You should see it New Year's Eve," said Harry Cat. Gradually, Chester's eyes got used to the lights. He looked up and way far above them, above New York and above the whole world, he made out a star that he knew was a star he used to look at back in Connecticut. When they had gone down to the station and Chester was in the matchbox again, he thought about that star. It made him feel better to think that there was one familiar thing twinkling above him, amid so much that was new and strange. There's Chester the cricket, there's Tucker the mouse, and Harry the cat. You see that?
Yeah. And I see that spider.
Alright. Tomorrow we'll read chapter 5, Sunday morning.
Can we get rid of that spider, right? I hate